of channeling it that way. Me, I like to feel like I'm, standing, and because it helps me, physically feel like I'm in the space and doing what I'm doing. So voiceover is a lot of visualization. It's a lot of like, okay, like guys, like I may do it like I'm, like challenging the guy, and I may envision it's from here to you to here, and then they go, no, John, he's right in his face. So then you immediately make that adjustment. I'm like, I'll get you, man! And it's like, no, Johnny's right in his face. I'll get you, man. So it's like those kind of things. It all has to do with you putting yourself in that place in that time. So it's a lot like regular acting, but it's happening a lot faster, and it's happening off the script. So you're kind of like trying to channel the script. And I usually have my scripts before I show up, but not always. Sometimes some of those games are really hard because you're doing a character and they just have books of lines that you're doing, and they're all out of context. They don't even tell you what context they're in. They'll correct you if you're hitting it wrong. It's like, don't come near me, man. It's like, no, the guy's actually walking towards him. We want you to like scream it out, don't come near me, man! It's like, okay, that's what we wanted. So you're relying a lot on them to give you a sense of what's going on, but a lot of times they're not giving you anything. So they're taking what you're giving them and they animate to what you give them, which is kind of cool. Sometimes you go in, sometimes you have to go back and redo. They've animated it different than what your performance was, so then you have to go and do what they call ADR, which is go in and change. And that happens with your own camera work too. I've had to match what I'm doing. You're seeing my face, and sometimes I've gone in and changed, there was noises in the background or something, they had to redo it, which is having been a voiceover artist, it's usually they love me coming in and doing it because I can do it so quick and easy because I'm used to that. And they get some actors that are like, this, I'm an actor kind of actors, those kind of, these kids that are, not very well trained. They're great on film and stuff like that, but when it comes to asking them to do something technical, they're not so on the ball, and it like takes 3 hours to get 4 lines, So I hope that answered your question. There's a lot of visualization for animation and voiceover stuff, getting into it. Obviously, if you're playing something heroic or, if they have, it always helps if they have pictures of what they're going for, because the physicality of something can change. It's great for an actor like myself to do voiceover, because I get to play stuff I would never get to play on camera. I play a lot of villains, play a lot of creepy guys, I play big guys, I play little guys, I play a lot of like, weird animals and weird creatures, kind of stuff, Never get to do that on camera. I'm not very physically big or intimidating or that kind of thing. And I'm not typed out by my age. I'm not typed out by my color, my look, any of that stuff. So it's kind of cool in terms of that. For doing animation is actually kind of a cool thing because of that. As you get older, your on-camera work gets less and less and less because they just write less parts for a person in their 50s than they did for a guy that was in his 20s and 30s. There's just less parts out there. And it's more competitive because those of us that are still around are good. People that aren't good, by the time you're 50, they've fallen on the wayside. They're not in it anymore. You just can't keep up. So whenever I audition for stuff for on-camera work or theater work, whatever, I'm against people that are good. My own age group that are, any one of us could probably get hired. It's just whichever one of us they would like to take on what we're doing or whatever, or what our instincts are, or how we come off on film. We like to think that we can change ourselves on film a lot, but there's still something about you that comes through no matter what you do. That gives people a sense of who and what you are, and which dictates the kind of roles that you wind up having as a career. And voiceover doesn't do that. It's been limitless for me. Been very, very lucky in that way.
Yeah. Have things changed greatly from when you first started to now?
Well, I was acting when I was a little kid. I loved it. And then I got involved in plays, and I used to do circuses in my basement, and I charged a penny for the circus and 5 cents for the candy that I bought for a penny. Just like the movie theaters, you know, they don't like money on the candy, you know. And I always loved it, and I always loved performing, and you know, when I got out of college, I got my first off-Broadway show, and it closed after 3 weeks. So I had no job. You know, I was only making $175 a week doing the show off-Broadway, and anybody who knows anything about New York, even in the 80s, you can't live on $175 a week. So I started doing stuff like street performing and that kind of thing, going to the clubs with a comedy group. We were kind of a 4-person comedy group. We did like Second City or Groundlings type stuff. Saturday Night Live was very big back then, so we used to do that kind of stuff. And I'd go out in front of the Metropolitan Museum, I'd put on white face and do a mime in front of the Metropolitan Museum. There's like all these steps that come out from the museum. And I'd get an audience, you know, on a slow day when nobody was out there, maybe I'd get like this many people and pass the hat. And then, but on a hot sunny day in the summer, I get like 400 or 500 people sitting on the steps. And I pass my hat and make $600 on the weekend, you know, street performing. So I always wanted to kind of survive as an actor. I didn't really want to take other jobs. Through the winter when I couldn't street perform and stuff like that, I had a friend that had a kid's clothing store that I worked in for a couple of months, or I had a friend that, you know, had a painting business in New York, and I would help them paint apartments, that kind of thing. But other than that, those were like just a few jobs that I had over the years when I wasn't, you know, when I was on the job market. I wanted to make my living as an actor, even if I wasn't making very much at it. And through the years, I got, you know, the first 6 years of my career living in New York, you know, I barely ever made living. Most of the money that I made was street performing. And, you know, then I won Star Search, and, you know, I won my $100,000, but that was just the beginning of what I was making financially. It was kind of a double-edged sword because I kind of really wanted to go into, I didn't really want to be a stand-up comedian, but that's how I was introduced to the Hollywood, you know, people, was as a stand-up comedian. And it, you know, I did a lot of sitcoms on television, and made a lot of money, you know, thankfully, because you just don't continue to make money. They don't pay you for your experience as an actor, they pay you for your popularity. And, you know, popularity wanes, you know, it comes and goes. And especially as you get older, it's just, you know, they're not writing the popular parts for the young people because, I mean, for the older people, because, you know, that's really not what puts asses in the seats in movie theaters. But, you know, I get a lot of my work through people that I've worked with over the years. I get a lot more of my work offered to me by people that I've worked with or people that love my work and want to work with me than I get through auditioning at my age, you know. So it's changed that way. You know, it's a good year if you've made your health insurance as an actor. You make a certain amount of money and you qualify for your health insurance through our unions. And that's kind of how it works. And I've been proud to have made my top of the line health insurance since 1985. I've made my top of the line health insurance. I'm just proud of that, you know. You know, I was able to make enough money to buy myself a house, and you know, I was smart enough to pay for that house over the years, as opposed to carrying a mortgage when I knew that there were years that I may not make enough money to pay my mortgage. I didn't want to lose that house, you know. And you know, I was able to travel all over the world with the money that I was making and stuff like that. You know, not so much now, but I still make a good living at it. I mean, a livable living at it. You know, I was smart enough to set myself up with a pension for when I'm old and I can't work anymore, or they don't want to give me jobs anymore, and which is really great that they have that in our union. And you know, it's not an easy business to have a steady career. So most people have like a couple of years, and then there are actors like me that maybe have 10, 20 years, and then there are actors like myself that do like 30, 40 years that they work. You know, they continue to get work. You know, I hope to, you know, I've 31 years been making my living solely as an actor. 1980, longer than that. It'll be, next year will be 34 years I've been making my living as an actor. solely as an actor. And I'm glad to have been able to just do that, you know. I don't know what else I would do, man. If they asked me to do math, I would fail miserably at it. People are like, oh my God, it must be so hard being an actor. I go, it'd be really hard for me to be an accountant. That would be really hard because I have no skill for that whatsoever. And, you know, I was just lucky enough to know early on that where my skill set would, you know, lay, and I chased that. And there are a lot of people that are very talented. They never pursue it just because it's you know, you have to give up a lot. You know, I gave up a lot over the years in terms of, you know, I didn't get, the first time I got married, the first time I got married, I was 40 years old, because before that I was always chasing my work and never in town and stuff like that. It was like tough for me to have a relationship. You know, I married an actress and that lasted 12 years, which is a long time in Hollywood years. But yeah, I didn't expect it to end, but you know, we were never in the same city at the same time. We were always traveling, both of us were working, and we were traveling all over the place, so it's hard that way, but you know, I don't think I would have done anything different, put it that way. Is this something you would pursue?
Yeah, but I had thoughts like along those lines.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, some people you just got to do it, you know, and it's, you know, there's a saying, you know, dare to dream, and to sometimes to chase big dreams like this, you have to dare to dream even at the cost of not getting it. And that's what it takes to get it, you know. But and there's a lot of ways to make to make a living with your skills, acting skills, that you know, past that point, if things don't go the way you want it. It's a lot harder these days too. There's so much media out there that it's just dissipated, you know. It's like anybody can post something on YouTube, and it's like, you know, my cat is famous for 5 weeks, you know. I get 300,000 hits with my cat, you know. But that's the way it is. It's changed. You know, there was nothing like that when I started out. There was no way for me to get my work out there unless I got into a comedy club and played for this many people and word got out. There was no place for me to post my work, you know. We were still using video cassettes. But there was no social media. You know, now they expect you to, you know, to do your own. How are we on time?
We're done.
We're done. There you go, 3 minutes. I gave you an extra 3 minutes. Thank you. I hope it was enlightening for you. I hope I didn't scare you away from an acting career. You know, I love what I do, and I respect anybody that tries to do it.
Thanks for coming to Boston.